lesson 27 on reading scales. Scales can be kind of tricky, and so we're going to just do one lesson today. Number lines can be horizontal, vertical, or even curved. So here's a horizontal number line, and you'll notice that not every number is labeled. I have 0, 5, 10, 15. I'm counting by fives with my labels, but there's tick marks in between them. So I can count my tick marks in between and figure out what each of those stands for. In this case, I have 5 tick marks, so each tick mark stands for 1 between 0 and 5. So even though they're not labeled, I can figure out what they are. And if I had a dot that was here, I could figure out what it was by saying 1, 2. Number lines can also be drawn vertically, like this number line right here. And thermometers are 2 ways that we commonly see a vertical drawn number line. Number lines can also be drawn in a circle. The most common place to see that is a clock, but they also can be just curved like this. We're going to look at that for speed, for speedometers and things also. So in this case, on many clocks, just the black letters 12, 3, 6, and 9 might be labeled, but notice that the tick marks in between would stand for things like 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 8, 10, and 11 are also represented by this clock. Here we see 2 different vertical number lines, and they show the 2 common scales for temperature. On this side, we have Celsius, and on this side we have Fahrenheit. Fahrenheit is what we use in the United States, and for Fahrenheit, water freezes at 32 degrees, room temperature is about 68 degrees Fahrenheit, and water boils at 212 degrees Fahrenheit. Whereas on Celsius, and this is what is used in pretty much every other country in the world, water freezes at 0 degrees Celsius, the room temperature is about 20 degrees Celsius, and water boils at 100 degrees Celsius. Even though only the numbers 0, 20, and 100 are labeled on this number line, all of these tick marks stand for a specific number, and we could figure out what it's going up by looking at the ones we see. So here's 0, and here's 20, and there's 1, 2, 3 spaces in between. So it looks like it's going up by 5s. 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, and that would continue all the way up to 100. Number lines also would continue down. Even though this thermometer doesn't show it, you could go much lower than 0 degrees Celsius when you're talking about very cold things, or much higher than 100 degrees Celsius when you're talking about very hot things. So you should be familiar with Celsius and Fahrenheit and know that Fahrenheit is what we use. The rest of the world uses Celsius, and it's based on what temperatures water freezes and boils at. All right, let's look at our notes sheet. So number lines can be horizontal, vertical, or curved. Only some numbers need to be seen, and you can figure out the missing ones from the ones that are seen. 2 common scales used for measuring temperature are Fahrenheit and Celsius. And Fahrenheit is abbreviated as an F with a little circle above it, and Celsius is abbreviated as a C with a little circle above it. Water freezes at 0, boils at 100 degrees with Celsius, 32 and 112 with Fahrenheit. Let's look at an example. Example number 1. What temperature is the thermometer showing? On your thing it said TER, it's supposed to be THER. So thermometer showing, here we go. We have a thermometer here, and there's a scale on the side, and then we have it filled in up to this point. So we got to figure out what this line represents. The way to do that first is to see how much it's going up by. So each number that's labeled is going up by 10. We have 60, 70, 80, but in between those 10, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 more tick marks, which means that when you add that would be the 5th tick mark. So it's going up by So each tick mark is going up by 2. I always want to check it when I think I know what it is. So 60, 62, 64, 66, 68, 70 degrees. So that is correct. So if they're going up by 2 And my line comes up to 1 over, I'm going to do this so we can see right where the line is. If it goes to 1 tick mark above 70, what would that be? Good, 72 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, so now let's look at example number 2. What number is the arrow pointing to? So here I have a curved number line. I have 200, 400, and 600 showing, but I have other tick marks in between them. So it looks like halfway between 400 and 600, we would expect to find 500, and this would be 300. And then halfway between 500 and 600, since there's only 1 tick mark between them, would be 550. Each of these tick marks is going up by 50. It goes 200, 250, 300, 350, 400, 450, 500, 550, 600. So what number is the arrow pointing to? It is pointing to 550. Here's the third type of question you could get. Draw a horizontal line from 0 to 500 with only 0 and hundreds marked or labeled. So my first step is to draw a horizontal line, and I'm going to do that. And since it's a line, I need to make sure that I put my arrows on the end showing it continues in both directions. And then I'm going to figure out, I'm only marking hundreds, and I'm starting at 0 and ending at 500. So let's see how many tick marks I'm going to need. 1 for 0, 100, 200, 300, 400, 500. So I'm going to need a total of 6 tick marks, and I'm going to want them to be evenly spaced apart. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is going to become 0, 100, 200, 300, 400, 500. Now, even though I've only labeled those numbers, I would know that in between here would be other, even though I've only labeled the hundreds, in between each hundred on this number line, there is obviously many other numbers, but all the numbers between 200 and 300. All right, well, that's the entire lesson. This is a little bit tricky, so make sure if you need to rewatch the video again, make sure that you understand what's going on and how to do it. And otherwise, let's get to work.